Good afternoon. This is Dulia De Silva for Gold FM, bringing you your news in detail.
The news headlines on Gold FM.
In your news headlines, Grade 1 reforms launched, Grade 6 still in question. IMF programme to continue as is. Does Sri Lanka have what it takes to leverage the mother of all deals? IRD looking for taxpayers on the streets. And in news overseas, China executes scam family.
The top story on Gold FM.
In your top story, plans are being formulated to include Grade 6 students in the National Education Reform Programme within the current year. That's according to Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amrasuriya. She made the statement while speaking at a national ceremony at Gunasekara Vidyalaya in Atturugiriya, marking the formal admission of Grade 1 students under the new curriculum framework. Secretary to the Ministry of Education, Nalaka Kaluvava, outlined the strategic objectives of these reforms, emphasising a shift towards modernised learning standards across the primary and secondary sectors.
This is the local news on Gold FM.
The Government Medical Officers Association warned of intensified industrial action if the government fails to provide a positive response to their demands by tomorrow. Dr. Hansamal Veerasurya, the Assistant Secretary to the GMOA, stated that several health sector trade unions are currently in discussions to coordinate a unified response. The warning comes as patients across the island report significant disruptions to medical services, with many expressing growing frustration over the impact of the ongoing professional disputes across the public healthcare access. The Inland Revenue Department initiated a comprehensive field observation program across Colombo to identify potential taxpayers and ensure formal registration of business establishments. The survey, which commenced on Tuesday, focuses on the Colombo 1 to 15 areas. IRD officials visited stores to verify tax file accuracy and provide on-site solutions for registration. Sri Lanka's programme with the International Monetary Fund will continue unchanged. This was communicated following a meeting between IMF representatives and President Anura Kumara Dissanayake yesterday. Sri Lanka and Belgium formalised an agreement to reschedule €9.6 million of external debt. Finance Ministry Secretary Harshana Suryaperuma and Credendo CEO Dirk Teruandue signed the pact in Colombo, extending repayment timelines to ease fiscal pressure. This bilateral move aligns with the nation's IMF-backed restructuring process following the 2022 economic crisis. Officials state the deal underscores a commitment to debt sustainability and strengthens ties between the two nations. The World Bank may think that Sri Lanka's economy will grow at 3.5% this year, but not the governor of the central bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe. He is unwilling to subscribe to the global monetary body's forecast and insists that the island nation's economic growth this year will be 4 to 5% instead. Speaking at a media briefing, he said that inflation will hit the target level of 5% towards the end of the second quarter this year. In the meantime, the governor also revealed that he expects an upgrade in the country's sovereign rating in response to a question on the country's dependence on tourism and remittances.
it's important to rely more on foreign exchange earnings than investments coming from abroad. Earnings means we, as a country, we earn ourselves the foreign exchange. That's where one source is tourism, other one is remittance, other one is export. So that's in the last 3 years and continuously we have been able to record current account surpluses. This also country will record the current account surplus in terms of more foreign exchange earnings than what we are going to spend this year. That's the important part. Obviously, investment also is important to support the growth. That will happen over a period of time. For that, there are certain things like rating will have to be improved. Now, we're hoping that this year there will be an upgrade of sovereign ratings compared to what we are. Last year we had an upgrade. This year another upgrade will improve the confidence. That will certainly help improve the trust and confidence of investors. That will support foreign investment especially coming. But domestically we can see credit is expanding. Stock market investment is happening in a big way. They are performing much better. This means there are evidences of domestic investments happening and there's confidence growing locally, but foreign we need to have some more kind of a stability, and that's why this continuous steady improvements in overall macro stability is important, and also rating upgrade will be crucial to further enhance the foreign direct investment or any other foreign investment.
The governor also revealed that the country saw $2 billion worth of vehicles being imported last year, and that he expects that figure to drop to around $1.5 billion in this year. Sri Lanka's apparel export sector enjoyed better returns in 2025, but exporters say they cannot be satisfied. The Export Development Board announced that total apparel exports for 2025 increased by 4.93% over the previous year. According to Johan Lawrence, the Secretary General of the Joint Apparel Association Forum, the numbers are not anything to be particularly happy about. While Sri Lanka's exports to the US, the island's largest trading partner, grew by roughly 6%, Lawrence says competitors like Cambodia and Vietnam saw a staggering jump.
There are some challenges because you take the US in particular, some of our other competitors have grown more than Sri Lanka has. Yes, Sri Lanka's business to the US has increased, but other competitor countries have increased by larger amounts. So it's something that we need to be conscious of. If you take the period from January to October, Sri Lanka's export to the US in particular, Sri Lanka grew by about 6%, but countries like Cambodia grew at 26%, Bangladesh grew at 14%, Vietnam grew at 12%, even India, who has a higher tariff than Sri Lanka, grew at 7%. This is something that we have to be conscious of, is that other countries are making bigger headways. Obviously, the US market declined in total there because there was a reduction from China of about 28 or 30%.
Lawrence also noted that Sri Lanka's pricing is the biggest issue for customers, and that the industry needs to take steps to lower costs. With customers demanding lower prices and regional rivals moving faster, the outlook for 2026 remains cautious.
It's a little difficult to say. We would predict probably that same sort of 4-5% growth would be hopefully, but it is dependent obviously on a number of variables. Obviously what happens finally with the US tariff situation is something that's of importance. Today's announcement of a new trade deal between India and the EU will have its implications on Sri Lanka's apparel. There are some headwinds ahead that we're going to have to try to manage if we're trying to keep this same level of growth.
While Lawrence has some reservations on Sri Lanka's resilience to external shocks, the central bank governor had a more upbeat take on the matter.
We have been able to negotiate a steady 20% comparable with all the other competitive countries. So I don't see an impact in terms of trade for Sri Lanka because we were able to negotiate up to 20% tariff, which is comparable with other competitive countries, that we hope that will remain. But we can see other countries' tariffs are being changed from week to a week basis sometimes. And there have been some bilateral trade agreements have been signed recently. India has signed on the EU. We also had duty-free access to UK market recently. Like those trade agreements also changing and happening. So there could be some trade diversion and trade flows could be volatile. But I don't think from our small market, we don't expect that's going to be a significant shock.
Lawrence spoke further about the recently announced trade deal between India and the European Union and its possible impact on Sri Lanka's apparel sector.
I mean, we need to look at the detail, but on the face of it, it would negatively impact Sri Lanka because India obviously gaining duty-free access to the EU for apparel would be a challenge for Sri Lanka. And similarly, there are some complications with the GSP scheme. It looks like it would be more of a disadvantage than an advantage.
While the trade deal between India and the EU is causing a certain degree of anxiety, some parties have a more optimistic point of view. Speaking to us, economist Professor Priyanka Dunusingha says that while the mother of all deals may seem daunting to our little island, it is also a gateway to new opportunities.
There will be outsourcing from Indian market to neighboring markets, particularly in the area of leather product, textile, rubber-based products and marine and so on and so forth. There will be new markets will be open to Indian investors. So as a result of that, India will sourcing some of those products into its country. So in that context, Sri Lanka certainly can benefit out of the trade agreement. Given the areas of trade liberalization, we can clearly see that in the area of leather, textile, rubber-based products, gem and jewellery and marine-related products, Sri Lanka also competes in the EU market. So in that context, certainly there is a challenge for Sri Lanka, but at the same time, I see that Indian investors will look into partner for sourcing from South Asian other countries as well. So in that context, Sri Lanka can certainly looking into opportunities when up with the trade agreement.
However, Sri Lanka cannot afford to be passive about it.
If we can get into Indian supply chain as the other countries, Chinese and Japanese, Southeast Asian countries, the same manner Sri Lanka can benefit from such opportunities that are open up only if we tightly integrate with the Indian economy. Otherwise, India will certainly capitalize all the benefits, internalize all the benefits to Indian investors, Indian businessmen. So we need to understand this, the dynamic, and Sri Lanka must actively engage in promoting much more closer corporate investment and trade cooperations with India. Just sitting in a passive way, I don't think that will certainly give us opportunities sitting in a passive manner. So that is what we need to basically emphasize. Sri Lankan policymakers must act fast.
Health authorities in Norelia issued an urgent safety warning as residents turn to indoor coal stoves to combat a severe cold spell. Temperatures in the region dropped to between 3 and 5 degrees Celsius over the last 24 hours. Respiratory specialist Dr. Chaturveer Singh cautioned against the popular practice of bringing outdoor meat grilling stoves inside homes for warmth. Medical experts warn that while these stoves effectively raise indoor temperatures, they pose significant respiratory risks and danger from carbon monoxide buildup if used without proper ventilation in closed spaces.
Now for some news in brief.
Assistant Superintendent of Police Rohan Olugala was appointed as the Director of the Valana Central Anti-Corruption Unit.
The business news on Gold FM.
The latest LMD Peppercube Business Confidence Index rose by 18 basis points to reach 182 in January, up from 164 in December. Despite the spike in sentiment, analysts at Peppercube Consultants warned that sustaining this recovery will require strong government support for affected sectors like tourism and agriculture amid ongoing global economic uncertainties. Gold prices surged to an unprecedented high above $5,500 an ounce today as investors rushed towards safe haven assets.
International news on Gold FM.
China executed 11 members of a notorious criminal gang, including key figures from the Ming family, for their roles in orchestrating a multi-billion-dollar telecom fraud empire in northern Myanmar. The executions were carried out today by a court in Wenzhou after receiving approval from the Supreme Court People's Court in Beijing, following death sentences handed down in September for crimes including intentional homicide, fraud, and unlawful detention. The syndicate was found responsible for the deaths of 14 Chinese citizens and forced labor of thousands of trafficked workers who were coerced into running online scams.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
Renowned filmmaker Sena Samarasinha, who directed some of the most commercially successful films in Sinhala cinema, passed away at the age of 89.
Sports news on Gold FM.
New Zealand scored a 50-run victory over India in the 4th T20 International in Visakhapatnam, taking a 3-1 lead in the series. That's it for now. This is Dulya De Silva for Gold FM. Thank you and have a lovely day ahead.